All right, let's talk Friday the 13th, the original one from 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham. The reason I want to talk about the Friday the 13th series, and quite honestly, all these classic 80s slasher movies, is because I have all these box sets that I've never actually opened up. I've seen all these movies over time separately and completely out of order, but I've never watched all these horror franchises one movie after the other in chronological order. I know I butchered that word, but it's okay. But I've seen the Friday the 13th movies throughout my life all over the place. I remember as a kid renting them from Blockbuster, completely random. The first one I did rent was the original, and the quick story to that is I was at a Marshall's back in 2006 when I was 6 years old. I was with my mom. It was during Halloween time, so they had costumes for sale. And I remember seeing a hockey mask and a green flannel, and it said Friday the 13th. I didn't know what this was at the time. My mom told me it was a movie, so I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So we bought the costume, and I figured to myself, well, if I'm going to get this costume, and if it's a movie, I might as well learn about this character, because I didn't even know his name was Jason at the time either. And it was the Jason Goes to Hell look. It looked like his head was oozing all, over the top of the hockey mask. It was that style look. His flannel was ripped with ribs showing and some limbs showing, and it also came with a machete. So long and behold, there was a Blockbuster right next door to the Marshalls at the time, and we rented the original Friday the 13th, and I remember being very confused as a kid. I didn't understand, like, where's Jason? But now, after watching this movie with a more mature set of eyes, it makes total sense. But the first movie, I remember after renting that from Blockbuster, I was so upset that I would just go to Blockbuster and then turn around the DVD covers to look for a hockey mask. So the first movie I actually enjoyed and watched after that was Part 3 as a kid. And I think I shot myself in the foot because these first two movies are nothing to sleep on. Obviously, it's not the iconic Jason that we know and love today, but these two first movies have their place in this franchise and they should not go unnoticed. Especially the first one. And I've noticed on YouTube, when you look at people's rankings of this franchise, very rarely is the first movie number one on anyone's Friday the 13th ranking list. And honestly, it's probably not in mine either, but this movie is a lot better than I remember it being when I was a kid. So let's get into it. Friday the 13th, 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham. This movie opens up in 1958 with a group of counselors at Camp Crystal Lake singing Michael by Highwayman. And shortly after, two counselors, a chick and a guy, get murdered by a killer we do not see. It's just a point of view shot of both of them getting killed, and then the title sequence comes right in, which is hysterical. Just Friday the 13th, really small, gets gradually bigger, and then boom, it looks like it breaks through glass. I was laughing my ass off watching this. And the fact that this is Blu-ray now, it looks incredible. Like, you could even see the flaws too, which there weren't that many on camera that I could see through this movie. But I heard in some of the others you could totally see the string on the eyeball in Part 3, because these are all 4K rescans of the original negatives of these movies. So the Blu-ray on these are beautiful. Like, just the cinematography is fantastic. So after the title sequence, we meet Annie, who is trying to get to Camp Crystal Lake because now the movie has jumped from 1958 to 1979. So the camp is trying to be reopened by a guy by the name of Steve Christie, who hires a group of counselors to try to revive Camp Crystal Lake, because I guess it was fun before the tragedy started happening. So we see Annie walking through this small town near Crystal Lake, and she walks into a local coffee shop, and she asks everyone in there for directions. They all look at her like she's got 7 heads, and then they all start toying with her a little bit, like, oh, Camp Blood. That's where all the crap went down. I know I'm just paraphrasing here because I just finished watching the movie, and I wrote very little notes on this because I thought I was going to remember a lot more, but obviously not. But everyone in this local coffee shop seems to be aware of what happened at Camp Crystal Lake and seems to want to stay away, except that one truck driver offers to give her a lift. I think they said it was 20 miles away, something like that. But shortly after Annie and this truck driver leave this coffee shop to go to the truck driver's truck, we are introduced to Crazy Ralph. And Crazy Ralph is what got me into this movie. It is what fully invested me in this movie. You have a small town that knows about this creepy urban legend at Crystal Lake, and then you have the local town crazy in this small town. Just something about small towns, and they have that one guy who they all know about who is crazy, and they all have an urban legend. So when you have the town crazy talking about the urban legend, but not only talking about it, but also warning people about this urban legend, it just gives you a really, ooh, small town creepy vibes. I don't know, that's what I was getting at. I know this movie's supposed to take place in New Jersey. I don't know if it's the Pine Barrens area. I don't know where the exact location was, but it feels like a small town with the local town crazy and with the urban legend. Already this is like very spooky. It's getting, not that this movie's very scary, but the suspense and the eeriness just continues to gradually increase throughout this movie. There's not a lot of downtime, and any of the downtime this movie does have, you're having fun while being in the down. Like when all the counselors are getting ready, like they're all swimming and having fun. The downtime really isn't downtime. It's fun time. But anyway, Annie gets warned by Crazy Ralph about Camp Crystal Lake. It has a death curse. Iconic line, and he rides away on the bicycle. I thought that was cool. We then see all the counselors start to arrive except for Annie, who's still making her way. And this is when we're introduced to Kevin Bacon and Adrienne King. We meet Alice, Steve, Maurice, Brenda, Ned, who's a clown, by the way, and I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So after we meet them for a little bit, we meet Steve Christie, who is introduced and then leaves very quickly. We don't get too much of him, and I think by the end of this movie, I said to myself, I wish I saw a little bit more of Steve, because the camp owner, I felt, should have been at least a little bit more involved, and I don't think you would leave a group of counselors with your sleepaway camp like that. I don't know. This was the 80s. It's not today. I'm a camp counselor, so it's strange seeing how times were different. But we then cut back to Annie, who is now trying to hitch a ride because the truck driver only drove her the halfway point to Camp Crystal Lake. When she's hitchhiking, we see a Jeep, and the Jeep slowly pulls over. Annie hops in, and we are now given the point of view shot again from the driver of the Jeep. So you know it's the killer, but you still don't know who this killer is, and I love that it's a point of view shot. Yes, they're taking it from Halloween because it was made a few years ago, and pretty much the entire Friday the 13th series is a piggyback on the Halloween franchise. I think I'm not too out of line for saying that, but the point of, because Michael Myers, you see him when he puts the mask on when he kills his sister as a kid in the flashback scene in the original 78 movie. Same thing here, but the killer always has the point of view shot. So they're driving. No, this killer's not talking to Annie, but she's still la-di-da until they pass the welcome to Camp Crystal Lake sign. I think it's the arrow sign pointing to the road where they gotta go. She realizes that, and then things get crazy. She ends up running into the woods. It was hilarious. Obviously, by the end of this movie, we know it's Pamela Voorhees. But when we realize it's Pamela Voorhees, all I was thinking is, damn, Pamela whips that Jeep. She's driving through these wooded areas with these big, long, curvy roads, kind of like northern Long Island. Dips, curves, you gotta stop short. And she's flying through these areas. I thought it was hilarious. Like, damn, she's got the need for speed. She don't F around, Pamela. But at this point, we still don't know it's Pamela, as Annie is killed. She gets her throat slit up against a tree. It's all right. Tom Savini did the effects for this movie, and he's a legend, so it shows. The practical effects are in full gear in this movie. We cut back to Camp Crystal Lake. A cop shows up, and this cop, I wrote this down, Officer Dorf, is hilarious. His dialogue is it's just hilarious. When Kevin Bacon walks by, and he goes, "You been smoking, boy?" And then Kevin Bacon's like, "Smoking? No, it causes cancer." And Dorf goes, "Well, just get off a spaceship or something? Come on. Colombian gold, man, grass, hash, the weed." It was just so funny and corny. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. But this cop comes to warn all these counselors that Crazy Ralph is on the loose and being Crazy Ralph. So keep a lookout for him, because otherwise I think the cop said for him it's a week in jail, and for me I think it's 2 days in court or something. I don't know. Everyone knows about Crazy Ralph except for these counselors who are out of towners, and that makes sense for a sleepaway camp. Usually you don't have local people working at the local sleepaway camp. Usually it's out of town people. The guy who runs the sleepaway camp is usually from the area, but the counselors usually come from out of town. So it makes sense that the counselors don't all know about the urban legends and Crazy Ralph, which I thought was cool. But it ends up that Crazy Ralph was actually in the pantry closet when Alice was in there to try to, I think it was, put something back in. I know she's going into the pantry closet and Crazy Ralph walks out and just warns all of them. Again, you're all doomed. So now all the counselors, all of them know who Crazy Ralph is. The only one who knew was Annie, and Annie didn't even make it to Crystal Lake. She's dead. So once Crazy Ralph leaves, a storm comes in, and this is when the killings begin. Ned, Jack, and Maurice all meet their demise, and that Kevin Bacon death, Jack's death, iconic. Now, after watching this on the Blu-ray, not that it's a flaw, but you can totally see that there was a latex body that they were shoving that spear through underneath the bed, which I thought was cool, but just it doesn't really matter. The effects, it works. It still looks cool. It still looks great. But that's the beauty of Blu-ray. You get to see all the little secrets. Some of them come to life. So we now cut to after Ned, Jack, and Maurice are dead. We see Steve Christy now is at a bar, a diner, and we now see that he has the same Jeep that was seen picking up Annie earlier in the movie. And now you're left thinking, wait a minute, is Crazy Ralph the killer? Is Steve the killer? Now you're all confused because we still have not seen who the killer is. Remember, I was trying to watch this movie with the point of view that I have not seen this at all yet. And it's a lot more fun if you do it that way instead of having in the back of your head that Pamela's coming. It works a lot better if you just watch it like you've never watched it before. And I know that's tough for a lot of people, but it really worked for me. And it was a lot more fun. But we see that Steve has a Jeep that's, I think it's the same Jeep that picked up Annie. So now you're left wondering is he the killer? Well, it didn't last very long because we see that Steve is ultimately killed not too long after. But Brenda, her scene, very, very eerie. This is the one scene that actually made me not jump a little bit, but I was a little... And I don't get scared when watching slasher movies. None of these movies are really scary. It's more about suspense building and storytelling. And I know a lot of people will argue that there's no story within the Friday the 13th franchise. There is and there isn't. Michael Myers obviously has a better storyline, but we'll talk about Michael Myers when it's time to talk about Michael Myers. When Brenda hears, "Help me," and I had the captions on, it said "Little Jason," it was very creepy. And she's ultimately lured to the archery range and killed off screen, but we see her body later on in the final act. That was, I don't remember that as a kid, probably because I kept fast forward and looking for a hockey mask, machete-wielding maniac, but not in this movie. So she's lured to the archery range and ultimately killed off camera, and we see her body come into the final act. Then we jump to, I'm trying to keep my continuity here. Hang on. Okay, yes. After she's killed off camera, Bill and Alice now start to investigate because they've noticed that everyone's gone missing. And I love these characters. These characters aren't stupid, except for Bill wanting to check out things on his own. This is the one thing I will say about Alice. She's a kick-ass final girl. She actually puts up a fight. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but she is one of my favorite final girls in this movie. If you watch this movie, it actually beats Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode just hit Michael Myers in the eye with a coat hanger. Alice is picking up everything, swinging, and doesn't care if she misses or not. We'll get into Alice. That whole grand finale is phenomenal. But anyway, Bill goes out to investigate on his own, and he's killed off camera. After Bill was killed, Alice is the only one left. Pamela Voorhees shows up. She meets Pamela, and then we are given the entire backstory of Jason Voorhees and what the urban legend is, what it details, and that it's actually true, and that, long and behold, that Pamela Voorhees is the scary Crystal Lake urban legend herself. So everything that Crazy Ralph was warning these kids about was true. The town seemed to know it was true, but didn't take it too seriously. Very creepy, very cool. So Pamela and Alice have a better fight than Freddy versus Jason. Alice is hiding, she's locking doors, she's swinging hammers, she's swinging paddles, she's swinging machetes. And that's why she's my favorite final girl, because she picks up that machete that's at least 10 feet away from Pamela when they're at the canoe dock. She picks up that machete, turns around, and runs towards Pamela because she wants to finish the job. This is what made Alice the best final girl, I think, in horror. I got to see a lot of these movies again. It's been a while. But Alice was kicking ass. And Pamela Voorhees gets decapitated. You see, not her hands. I remember seeing some behind the scenes in a documentary a year ago that, because you look at her hands when they're doing this after her head flies off, they're hairy. And those were not Betsy Palmer's hands in the movie. But the scene was just fantastic. And that entire final act was just way more action-packed than I remember it being as a kid. I don't really remember that entire final act at all. I remember Pamela getting decapitated, but I don't remember Alice putting up that good of a fight. But no, this is great, because this movie, you don't know who the killer is up until about that 1 hour, 15-minute mark. And the whole time you're thinking, well, who is it? Is it Crazy Ralph? Is it Steve? You don't even know who Pamela is until the 1 hour and 15 mark. We heard about from the truck driver with Annie earlier in the movie. He said about the tragedy, the boy who drowned in 78, the two who were killed in 79, or 77. I might be butchering the dates. I just watched this movie, but certain things I did not write down. Anyway, this movie was a lot of fun. And I actually can't wait to watch part 2 for the first time ever. I've never seen Potato Sack Jason. I've only seen clips, but I've never seen the movie from beginning to end. And I'm actually really excited to watch all of these movies, from 1 all the way to Freddy vs. Jason, because that's the original timeline, and then the remake, which I have not seen since the year it came out, 2009. But the first Friday the 13th is definitely a must-watch. It's cool, and it's something that started a franchise that was never intended to be, which is cool. All the way from this one, all the way up to Jason X. This franchise gets very, very corny after the 6th movie. And the one thing I love about these 80s slasher movies, there's always a franchise. Freddy's got a crap load of films, Jason's got a crap load of films, and now after the Halloween Kills movie that just came out, Michael Myers now ties Jason with 12 movies each. And Michael Myers will beat Jason in 2022 when Halloween Ends comes out. But overall, the Friday the 13th series, I'm looking very forward to doing this. Nothing but looking forward to it. So, all right, that's it. It's Friday the 13th, 1980. Thanks for watching.